The first time you ever get locked up, you get a MIN number, and that's your number, stays with you for the rest of your life, you know? It's part of my life. I spent the last 15 years in prison carrying that number. It's 329910. All up, I've done about 15 years worth of jail. Every time I'm out, and something always goes wrong with me, unfortunately, I'm trying to make it a fresh beginning.
Getting out of jail is described by most of the people that we work with as much tougher than the experience of imprisonment itself. CRC, the Community Restorative Centre, is a non-government organisation. We work with prisoners, ex-prisoners and their families with a big focus on supporting people in the transitional post-release stage after they've got out. The majority of our clients have spent most of their lives being managed in criminal justice system settings rather than being supported in the community. Even though it's not a great environment, it's routine and people know what's what, and a lot of the guys and women that we work with, they know how to be in jail.
I'm 32 years old. Basically, I've committed a crime before. I used to be a drug addict. I got thrown in prison, done my time. Before, I never used to think, I used to just act. And look where it ended up. I wasted 15 years of my life by just acting and not thinking about the consequences, you know?
So I'm a transitional worker with Community Restorative Centre, and what I do is I support inmates when they get released to transition into the community. I'm there to pick them up. He doesn't have ID, he doesn't have transport, he has no money, he doesn't read and write, he's anxious, he's frightened. They just walk out the door. They just get left to go.
You know, I feel a bit lost at the moment. It's like I'm in a big wild world, you know, and don't know what to do. I was getting released and I was a bit worried that they won't let me out because I had no address to attend to. When I was young, I used to steal cars and like sleep in cars overnight instead of being, I was homeless too back then, you know, so very young and stupid, you know. And that got me into a lot of trouble. For example, police, high-speed police chases, and yeah, in and out of jail all my life. I just got some normal essentials. I needed like a warm jacket, you know, because it's a bit cold at the moment, so I just got like a nice woolly jacket. Been to housing, got some accommodation for the night, and yeah, Centrelink. It's weird sort of because I've been very confined like for a long period of time, so in a way I'm sort of enjoying it, but I feel out of place at the same time.
When you've spent a lot of your life in jail, how you live is going to be informed by those experiences. The experience of imprisonment itself is the single greatest risk factor for recidivism, so the single greatest risk factor for returning to custody. And the more times you go to prison, the higher your recidivism rate.
It's not nice to be alone, you know, it's always, you don't know what tomorrow's gonna bring, you know, so I think I'm getting older. I don't wanna live my life like that anymore. I wanna try and be a better person.
Police and members of the public have been put at risk because the bleeding hearts want to look after the crims, not the citizens.
The Victorian parole system released violent criminals instead of protecting public safety,
criminals on parole
according
are
to a
demanding an
scathing
overhaul
report
of the
from
legal
Criminal
system.
Justice.
They say
Well,
parole
it's
is
an appalling
being
situation,
used
Alan.
as
Like members of the community, I'd like to see these people locked up forever and the key thrown away.
People think that everyone that goes to prison goes because of incredibly serious offences, and that's what we would understand if we were to base our assumptions on what we see on TV and the way that crime is reported. Sometimes their offences, you know, are frightening. But if you look at everybody that was released, say in the last financial year, you would find that 89% of them did sentences of under 2 years. So 89% of them weren't in there for any significant period of time. The majority of them were in there for under 6 months. People should be sent to prison as punishment, not for punishment, and that's quite an important distinction. The idea is that the loss of liberty is the punishment, but most of your other human rights and your sense of dignity and your sense of humanity should be intact.
But what about the sense of dignity of the person who's had to have facial reconstruction after they've been bashed during an ice rage?
Yeah, look, the dignity of victims of crime is a whole other conversation, but it's not an either or.
There's a combination of...
The whole point of human rights is that everybody, regardless of who they are accorded certain rights as a consequence of their humanity. Doesn't matter what your sex is, doesn't matter what your gender is, your sexuality. In the case of our clients, it also doesn't matter what they've done. You're still accorded those rights. This idea that victims and offenders' rights are in opposition is really misguided.
If I didn't have anywhere to sleep or have anything to eat, I would find a way to get that into my system and to be able to feed.
But would you necessarily go and be a violent criminal?
Well, I wouldn't know. I've never been in a position that I've had nowhere to sleep. I've never been in a position that I've had nowhere to eat.
Things I've done to the people, like when I've hurt and people that worked hard for their stuff, you know, I feel bad for them, but at the time I wasn't thinking straight, so yeah. If I didn't have Paula, I don't know what I'll do. I'll probably be back hanging out with bad crowds and getting up to no good again. And yes, I did feel better because at least I had something to look forward to.
In some ways, it's less about forgiveness than it is about the pragmatics. Like whether or not you forgive somebody is, you know, that's got to be a personal decision. If you want to reduce crime, then that point of transition is actually a really smart place to target things. We've lost an enormous amount of funding. Last year we lost a lot of our core transitional programs, and what that means is for most people coming out of custody, we're not able to support them in the way that we've been able to support Chris, for instance. And that ultimately is going to result in an increase in crime. If you can't provide a pathway for people, then they're going to reoffend.
You lock them up, they get released. You can't lock them up forever.
Anyone can change. I'm trying to change right now.